All right, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. Let's go ahead and jump back. Want to look at what happened yesterday. I'm not proud of the trades I called, but just want to show you some of the incredible price action that occurred. So we'll go back just before the open. Remember, I told you I tried this short as we were pushing back up into the low of the day before and was looking for at least 5 points down to the FMA, and then I had runners for deeper, but there was no hold. We held it once, we held it twice, and then the third time they finally pushed through, pulled back, and then used it as support to bounce off literally at the open, bounce right off the previous daily low and start pushing. So market opened right there, started ripping higher, and as we came into, I know there's a lot of lines here. It might look a little sloppy. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. We came up right into our first expected resistance zone. So market ripped right off the previous daily low, came into our first expected resistance, and that's where I saw some market internals showing weakness and jumped in short and only got 5 points. It never pushed to my 10-point target and beyond, and then came right back. So I got a little bit of profit out of it, and then we came right into our minor eye level at 38.75, and I'm very looking back at it, hindsight, I'm very mad that I didn't just go ahead and tell you guys to short this. It would have been the best trade of the day because we never came back. Everything just started selling off from there. Instead, with all the bullish momentum, I decided to try to get long on these two levels, and you can see there was some follow through, but then it fell right off the eye level. And on the second one, again, some follow through, got to about 3 points of profit and then fell out. So those two trades break even, and then this one here just completely washed out. It went right through the 200 and went, a little more than 2 points through it, and then came up to fail right off of that swing we were watching. So then things started coming down, and we were having trouble getting through that second swing area. This was our expected resistance zone here. Tried, and then failed as we could not stay above the 200 moving average. There actually was a lot of stuff in the market internals telling me to short the market right here. And being that everything was kind of funky at the open, and I just didn't pull the trigger, and sure enough, it fell out from there. So let's look at what happened. We came down, couldn't get through our minor eye level again, using it as resistance multiple times. The bulls tried to rip it back up, and then eventually got back through it, came up and found resistance off the swing we were watching once, twice, and then 3 times. And then from there, the bears, and if you look, you zoom out and look, this minor eye level 53 was acting as resistance here, so it was coming up and having trouble. And then eventually, it was a little messy in here, but eventually got up through it. Couldn't get through the major swing, came back down to it, came back up to the major swing, came back down to it, bounced up off of it, and here's some more bouncing, and then eventually it finally just, the bottom drops out. And you can see the market came down and once again came right into the previous daily low, and then came into the previous daily low a second time. And then we sold off, and where did the market bounce? And actually, this is kind of cool. The market came down through the OPL and then right off the holy orange power level, sold off down right into 38.22. And if I zoom this out so you can see it from a bigger perspective here, you can see that they tried to hold off of 38.22 here, but then failed right around the OPL, and then came down and hit the back end of 38.22 and came down right into our next pocket. And that was basically the low of the day, was just 2 points below our 38.07 quarter minor level. And then they got a really strong bounce back up and was pretty messy here at the end of the day. And now you can see in the overnight session where we're at. The market tried to break out back to the upside, and then this is the CPI news that came out an hour before the open here for this morning. And you could see right when the CPI hit, huge bullish push, only to sucker all the bulls in and drop it. Let's see, I don't even know how many points, about 100 points in the matter of about 5 minutes. So still have some beautiful respect of all the areas that we watch. And looking at things right now, we're continuing to sell off. And remember, for the last 2 or 3 days, we've been talking about the multiple time frame bearish signal that I said could lead to continuation to the downside. And that's all we've gotten ever since we established that. The market just continues to make lower lows as the week progresses. So let's go into our daily chart and then we'll start looking at the levels we want to use for trading this morning. I'm going to go up to the daily here and we'll take a look. So here's the thing. We saw the first clues back on June 27th, and we saw it not only on the daily, but we saw a beautiful weekly bearish divergence back on June 27th. And that's when I warned everybody that we could see a bearish pullback. Sure enough, it did sell off, and then the market found recovery right off the 61.8 retracement of this push up from the low of the year. So came up, we saw the bearish divergence from the weekly down, came down, held the 61.8, tried to bounce back up, and if you remember 2 or 3 days ago, like I said, we saw another daily bearish divergence that had some bolstering on the 4-hour and the hourly. So basically enough information on the daily, 4-hour, and hourly to give us confidence that we could expect a sell off from there. And so far, 3 days into this, after this signal, we've done nothing but make lower lows. So let's look at this morning. Obviously, yesterday's daily bar, very bearish looking. And then here's the bar from this morning, all basically the CPI. This is the range of the high of that push after CPI and the low. So that's where we are right now. Notice we came up to try to break out of yesterday's price action, but then just dropped 100 points. So not necessarily a great clue so far for what's going to happen here this morning. But let me just show you what I'm seeing here. Remember, we want to focus in on daily signals. When daily signals print, that's when we typically see the biggest follow through. So let's look down here. Right now, if we don't break the low of July 5th, which happens to be 37.44, there technically will be a bullish divergence on the daily again. So again, if we don't break 37.44, which you can see I have a shaded region here that it goes up to 37.44. So if we don't break the top end of that shaded region, or we come into that shaded region and things rip on out, we will have a good argument for a bullish divergence on the daily. So be aware of that. And again, 37.44 will be marked on our short time frame charts as the top end of this little shaded region. So let's go down. I'll go to the 4-hour just to see if there are any other important signals to be aware of. Remember back a few days ago, there's the 4-hour bearish signal, that beautiful pattern that we saw in conjunction with the daily. And then a couple weeks ago, the major highs that where we have the weekly bearish divergence over here also have the 4-hour. Right now, what we have is technically from the low we made here in the overnight session, we technically have a bullish divergence, because if you look down to the RVI, the market has pushed significantly lower from the low back here on July 12th from yesterday, but the RVI is pushed significantly higher here. So again, we're just watching this stuff because we're in such a strong downtrend. Just because we're seeing some potential bullishness on these higher time frames doesn't mean we're just jumping long because we see it. We're just going to be watching this to see if the bars do end up closing the way they look right now, and then we do end up seeing some bullish follow through. Maybe the market internals are very strong. We might actually want to heed the advice that we're getting here from the 4-hour and again from the hourly. Just remember, on the hourly, we need to stay above 44, or at least come down and test that level, maybe get a little shy peek through, and then start coming back up before we have any faith in what that daily chart is saying. Right now, there's no signal. The signal will be there if the daily bar closes and doesn't break 44. And so just be aware of that potential on these higher time frames to see a bullish divergence. Could lead to a little pop or a little micro bounce or something, if this candle closes the way it looks. Same thing on the 60-minute chart, our hourly chart. Another bullish divergence. This is an official signal now from the overnight low. We have it on the 30-minute, we have it on the 10-minute, and we have it on the 1-minute as well. So from the major low we made here, 37.52 in the overnight session, we do have a lot of bullish clues, kind of like we had from the lows going into the open yesterday, and kind of like the low of last night, the low of yesterday, which led to this attempt to bounce back up, but it was shallow, very shallow bounce, and then we continue going. So maybe that's what we'll get this morning, given that we have such a good confluence of signals across the board. Maybe there'll be a little micro bounce, but like I've said, I feel like I'm just saying the same thing every morning. Like I said in the last probably 3 months, every time the market bounces, I'm very skeptical and I'm looking to short. So even if we do get some bullish follow through this morning, I'm skeptical of it being for a breakout to come up and get through 39.22 and 39.50. But anything's possible. Anything's possible. It could happen. So that's what I'm seeing from the major signals perspective here. Some potential bullish signals from the overnight low within the context of a very heavy market with very strong bearish signals from the weekly on down up on the highs that we made here for the last few weeks. All right, so we got all that done. Let's look at the levels that we're going to be dealing with here this morning. First thing I want to mention is that we do have the retracement of this whole leg down. So from the high 39.22 that we made a couple days ago down to the overnight low, we do have the bigger retracement levels. However, because we're really heavy this morning, I'm not going to officially mark them on the chart until we really find a low. Right now, we could just be getting a micro bounce that leads to a continuation lower. In that case, we have to redraw this fib leg. So I'm not going to put the lines on there until we really establish a major low. But for now, the low is 37.52. The high is 39.22. Just be aware of those fib legs and remember to redraw it if the market does continue to sell off. Second thing I want to mention is that this pocket from yesterday that we drew on the chart from about 37.89 to 37.93, last night we just went or this morning after the CPI news, we just went ahead and cut right through it. In fact, I think we're zoomed out here on a 60-minute, but I think both this pocket and the minor eye level, they just went ahead and sold right on through it and then came down. And like I said, we're bouncing. Well, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but I'll mention it in a second. So we've got that little pocket there. And what I would say is this morning, if the bulls do end up bouncing back up into that pocket, we're looking at expecting resistance either at the bottom end of the pocket or the top end. Could it come right into the middle and fail or something? That is a possibility, but the major extremes of this box are really what I'm interested in here. So just be aware of that. And this box you should already have on your charts if you've been watching our trading room for the last 2 or 3 days. So that's what I would tell you about this one little area right here. And then the only other new level that is on the chart outside of the daily power levels that update every day is this little pocket I added right in these two pockets right here. We've got 37.39 to 37.44. Very similar to the pocket up here. It's more so an expectation that either the top end of that pocket should hold or the bottom end of the pocket should hold. But of course, there's always a possibility they could kind of come into it midway and get that support. So be aware that we have this pocket 37.39 to 37.44 as a possible area of support. And then from there, we're into the minor eye level 37.35. And then from there, I have this second pocket, which is a little tighter, basically 23.50 to 25.50. Okay, and this is just an expected area of potential support if the market continues to sell through the minor eye level. And if that doesn't hold, we've got the final pocket on the chart that has been on here for a while, 37.09 to the major swing at 37.13, 37.13 half. From there, it's basically all the major and minor eye levels we've talked about for a long time below. All right, so that's some of the stuff I wanted to mention down over here. And then on the upside here, if we do get a attempt by the bulls to break out, like we've seen over and over again, what do we have above us here? I'm going to get rid of this retracement for now. What we have is all the major and minor eye levels that you should already be aware of. And then we have the major swing from yesterday, which happens to be the previous daily low. We've got the orange power level and the close of yesterday up over here that will be important for the bulls to get through. Notice that we had a lot of support in the market right around this area. So somewhere around the major, well, makes sense. It's the major eye level, 38.22. So if we come back up, that area by 38.22, the major eye level, the close of yesterday, and even the orange power level in here, very important for the bulls to get through. And then even if they do pop through there, 50% of yesterday, also a very important level to see the bulls get through before we really have any faith in a kind of a breakout through the high of yesterday, through these other levels up above. I think that's basically it. So remember, we have a lot of bearish signals from the highs, all the way from the weekly all the way down. But as we pull back and we continue to stair step lower here, we do continue to get some decent high time frame bullish signals from the lows. So not as strong a bullish signal as we have for the bearish signal off the highs, but because we do have it down here, we could see an attempt for a bounce. And yesterday was a pretty strong one out of the open. And then from our overnight low yesterday, also a pretty good attempt. So this morning, again, I can't predict the future for you. I can only tell you what the signals are saying. So we could either bounce to where we got to now, and that's it, and we just start selling off to lower lows, or the market could very well, if I could get this right, could very well start coming up and start pushing right back up into these levels. Remember, the market is sometimes irrational, unpredictable, and we just have to react to whatever the market's doing. So for all we know this morning, even though it's very heavy, we could see this thing just start ripping and have some type of breakout. That's always a possibility. So don't ignore what the market is telling you. Outside of that, let me just take a look at news just to see here. We do nothing too important, although we do have a Treasury statement release at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern today. I think the big news was really CPI, and you could see that it led to a major rejection into new lows right now. So the context of the market to me looks for lower, but we do have some of those good bullish signals from the lows. And then the rest of the week, I mean, we've had a lot of Fed speak all week. We've had some of the chairman speaking. So we've got that all week, and nothing else too important to mention right now other than on Friday morning we will have some decent news drops, at least while the market is open. So that's what we got for this morning. Enjoy, have a great day to those watching out on YouTube, and we'll get started here and see what we can do. So see you then. See you tomorrow.